Yo, what's up y'all? Mysteria here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a bass house track in 4 simple steps. I'm going to be using my track Everything as the example here, and if you want to get all of the samples and loops from that project, you can download those for free in the description below. But without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, y'all, so step 1 when making this kind of track is to get the drums going. Start to build out a groove and a foundation that we'll be able to layer everything else on top of. So in this case, I start with a kick. And then from there, I'm going to look for additional drum layers to put on top of that kick. Usually first, I'll start with a clap. And then I'll look for a hi-hat to put in between the kick and the clap. Now, once I have that in place, I'll start to look for other things to layer on certain hat hits or certain clap hits, so it's not just the same thing repeating. In this case, I used a perk right on the first hit, and then a little 8th note hat over here. And then over here, I continue to add more layers by adding a ride. All this stuff really just keeps things interesting and adds energy and makes it less likely that your track will sound repetitive. And then lastly, I'll usually reach for some kind of fills to add some swing every 2 bars, 4 bars, or 8 bars. All right, cool. Now that we have our drums filled out, step 2 is going to be finding a bass line to fill out that low end. So in this case, I used an 808 that I made in Serum. And then I just created a pattern I like. I don't use piano usually. I'll just kind of click around, and I'll usually make a 1-bar loop or 2-bar loop. In this case, I kind of used a repeating 1-bar loop with some variations to make it a little bit more interesting and less repetitive. So here's what that sounds like. And I am feeding this into the sidechain channel up here. This is just getting it out of the way of the kick. I like to use LFO tool. And lastly, with this bass line, whatever bass line you're doing, I would encourage you to experiment with pitch bends because it helps make it way more interesting. I'll usually do some kind of tweak every bar, 2 bars, just to help move that bass around and kind of accelerate it into certain notes. And you can do that in Serum just by setting these parameters here, up 1 octave, up or down 1 octave, and then moving that around, and it opens up a new automation lane for you. Cool. So now that we have our drums and bass in place, here's what it sounds like. Cool, but I think we can make it more interesting. So step 3 is going to be finding a vocal for the track. In this case, I found this vocal online and created a little build with it and then used it right before the drop.
Everything's gonna be your...
But I don't want to just stop there with vocals. I think there's more things we can do to add energy and really make this track hype and interesting. So I found all sorts of little chants and breaths and shouts to help fill out some of those layers. So here's what it sounds like. You can hear there's almost a little call and response going with these vocal layers alone, which really makes things dynamic. Cool. Now that we have our bass, our drums, our vocals in place, step 4, the final step, is adding effects and ear candy. So in this case, I first did some kind of vinyl crackle and ambience to help give it a more organic feel. Then I found some white noise to throw on top of it. Little alarm. And I also found a riser to use in the build over here.
Everything's gonna be yo.
And now once you have this stuff in place, this is essentially mostly filled out track, but I like to usually take it a step further, especially in later parts of the track, and add additional layers in the high end. So in this specific example, in the second drop, I made a little cool perk pattern, kind of pluck pattern, using some of the notes in the bass line, but switching a few of them up. So here's what that sounds like. And then in the third drop, I did even more, adding this serum patch that was kind of like a winding down synth.
Things gonna be yo.
And that's about it, guys. I know I went through this quickly, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And if you want to use any of these samples in your own tracks, you can check that out. There's a link in the description below. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.